To understand the shadow, one must understand Calypso, how it was before the shadow. Calypso is an art form in Trinidad and Tobago that was brought here by Africans from Africa. And during the period of slavery and colonialism, colonial rule, the Calypsonians, or those who practiced the art of Calypso, had to shape the art in a way, the Calypso art, disguise it in a way to please the colonial master. So in terms of language, in terms of dress, food and otherwise, Calypso in a way, and the Calypsonian reflected the colonial settings at that time. In other words, understanding colonialism, you know that colonialism means the domination of one country over another, which ultimately means the domination of one culture over another culture. So in order, and both colonial and slavery were brutal systems designed to keep people in subjection. Hence the reason why the Calypsonian had to find a way to survive within the brutality of the system. Because as we would know, that at one time, even the Calypso tent was an illegal entity within the colonial system. It wasn't until the 1920s when a guy called Ray Douglas and so decided to form the Calypso tent. But even when they formed the tent, it was not legal. And then people like Uriah Butler and so took the concept, the idea of a Calypso tent being a legal institution to the Legislative Council, which was the Parliament at that time, to make it legal. So that was the era, that was the era that the Calypsonian had to navigate through. So that even when we reached the 1930s and 40s, and you had fellas like Lion and Tiger and Sir Galba and these guys singing, and you look at the dress code, they would always have that kind of colonial dress code, the suit, the well-dressed kind of situation. And coming through to the 1950s, even in the era of the Sparrows and the Melodies and the Terrors and so on, that legacy still lingered on. And then when Kitchener, Lord Kitchener, he had left Trinidad during the 40s, went to England and returned to Trinidad in the early 60s. Kitchener brought that same kind of English style dress code and so to Calypso. Even the music sometimes reflected, like in Kitchener instance, the sort of English symphony in his music. We hear the variations and so, a lot of English symphony. So that if that period, which was called the golden era of Calypso during the 60s, when Sparrow and Kitchener were the dominant forces in Calypso music, no other Calypsonian could break through that long span of domination by both Kitchener and Sparrow. So, but they had, their music and so was set in a standard kind of, in a sort of standard that remained constant throughout the years. And many other Calypsonians, like Blakey, Composer, even Black Stallion, and so on, tried to break through that era to bring something. But, not to bring something, but to sort of break through that domination of Sparrow and Kitchener. And it was not until like in 1971 when this guy from left Lekoto went to Trinidad. His only intention, as he said, was to challenge Sparrow and Kitchener, to break that long span between Sparrow and Kitchener, because at that time, only Sparrow and Kitchener used to win the road match. Like you recall that Sparrow won in 62, And then Kitchener came and won in 63, 64, 65, Sparrow won in 66, Kitchener won in 67 and 68, Sparrow won in 69, Kitchener won in 70, 71, Sparrow won in 72, and Kitchener won in 73. So that Calypso in Trinidad and Tobago was the sort of, was owned by Sparrow and Kitchener in a real way. So, but when Shadow came in 71, he was singing that I am here to threaten these two great, he acknowledged them as great champions of Calypso. I am here to challenge them. So I'm bringing this song called The Threat in 1971. Steel Band Boys, please listen to me. Dig the beat of this melody. If them Steel Band Boys give this tune a simple try. Kitchener, water in your eye. Boom, bam, boom, boom, bam. And that's the bass, the drums and so was in that song. Then in 72, he said trouble in 72, right? Because he said in 71, if all you beat me in 71, get a piece of chain and tie me, because when I come back with trouble next year. So he came back in 72 with trouble in 72. 1973, he went at them again. He said, look, whatever I've broken Obia, I want to break through that. Carry me by the Obia man to quite down in Kuva, an old grave digger. Tell me bumps up Lord Kitchener, jumping in a cemetery, joking like he'd be crazy. I don't know why I don't begin to call the eye. I don't want to get vexed and lose my temper. Mr. Kitchener and Mr. Sparrow, anytime I get vexed, I will use my razor. I begin all you carry me by the Obia man too. And that was the Shadow. 1974, Kitchener, big song called Jericho. Sparrow, Miss Mary. And Shadow kept coming in late in the race, bassman. And with about 2 weeks to go, the whole of Trinidad and Tobago turned old man. Everybody was bassman, backed up by another big song called I Come Out to Play. And we know, remember bassman. Boom, beating, bum, 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 bum. It never happened in life.
I was planning to forget Calypso, to go and plant peace in Tobago, but I am afraid I can't make it great. Every night I lie down in my bed, I hearing a bassman in my head. I'm bam bidim bam, bow, I'm bam bidim bam, bow, I'm bam bidim bam, bow, 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 bow. I don't know how this thing gets inside me. Mama, every morning he driving me crazy, like he taking me for a panic.
But what Shadow as an influencer did, he did not only influence the music through the drum, the bass, and he had some brilliant more lines. These were new innovations to Calypso music. The bass and the drum were featured because remember at that time in the United States there was a revolution, a musical revolution going on called soul music, headed by people like James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding and so on. And they focused in America on the drums and bass. So Shadow had that kind of drum coming from Tobago, coming from Legato, with all that kind of tramping rhythm and so, bassman. Now, the important thing to remember about 1974 is not only that he changed the music, but he also, as I said, changed the whole modus operandi of Calypso, of the Calypsonian in terms of the dress wear. So Shadow came in a long black gown, black hat, shades, and he also had a dance, a prance on one spot, which is a kind of traditional African dance. You see it all in South Africa and these places. And he had a beard. Significantly because Calypsonians before were clean-shaven fellas, they were trying to be like mimic the colonial masters. So that whole, what he did was radicalize or revolutionize the Calypso music and gave a new dimension, a new outlook as to what Calypso should be and how it would be in the future. And it was the combination of his music, his dress code, and his entire movement that began the transformation and the change from Calypso into what we now call soca music. Because although Lord Shorty is credited as the master of soca, as the creator of soca, remember that all up to 1974 and 1973, when Shadow was coming with his new invitation, Shorty and his guys were still imitating Sparrow. There was nothing new about the music. So in terms of influencing and being an influencer, that's where you have to look at. And soon after Shadow, you had people like Super Blue. You had Ronnie McIntosh with the same gong and so on. Then you had Brother. And they now had the same kind of radicalization in terms of the way they move as Calypsonians, the way they carry themselves as Calypsonians. Even guys like Stalin and so on began to transform. Yeah, basically I was giving a sort of overview of the Shadow and Calypso in a whole from then to now, you know. And I think that in terms of what we're doing to the Sharlan, who have all the genetics of the Shadow within him, is the ideal and ultimate person, brother, to put on, to give now his views in terms of Shadow the influencer.
It's interesting, I mean, Shadow the influencer, because when you think about Calypsonians and Calypso, I don't think when you check back at present, back 20 years or 25 years, it hasn't had a Calypsonian who has been more mimicked, imitated, or influential, you know. I know you feel about that, because when we look at in this modern time, in 1 year we had about 3-4 Shadow influence songs. Our last Calypso Monarch in 2020 actually used one of Shadow songs, Obia, you know. Over that 20 years ago, we singing Francie, Blacks, I mean, even for the Extreme Road March, where you had the bassman influence, Ajala, you know what I mean, I know Swallow did one too, you know what I mean, and that's testimony to a man's song that, you know, I think, as I was quoting a friend of mine, Stanley, he said, one thing about Shadow is that he was so ahead of his time that, you know, in 1974, he was doing 2020 music, you know.
Yeah, don't forget this, but Swappy too.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Swappy. Yeah. Swappy jumped in the thing too, man.
And I think that the point to that is that it shows how that unique style of Shadow have become the standard in some of the songs today, because you point out the melodic bass line. Before, in the early 50s and before that, we had the walking bass style, the ding, 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 bum, ding, ding, and then Shadow come and say, nah, boom, ding, bam, bam, boom, ding. And that one move really changed the sound of Calypso today. I never disagreed with that.
No, you're on point. Yeah, you're on point, because I mean, it shows how his music has spanned the generation.
Correct. And as you say, I mean, you have to West Indian music is drum and bass, you know, and he become the master of drum and bass, you know. And that drum and bass, and actually, there are actual songs of other artists along the way, because there are things that songs like Children Thing. I mean, it's stuff we do in the 80s, like Way Out, that was song like other people. His music was very influential, and I think one of the points that is missed about Shadow, and in the case of musicality, is his musicianship. We tend to have a kind of with the credit, you shouldn't take really credit from the arrangers, because you look at some top level arrangers, when you have the Art Photos and the Frankie McIntosh. And you know, but what a lot of people don't know about Winston Bailey is he understanding what Shadow is now, and always being in control of that song. I mean, and it's as simple as how intricate beats he would use, you know. I mean, an example like Poverty is Hell. If you listen to the relationship between that bass and the thing in Poverty is Hell, I mean, that style of dance all today.
Poverty is hell, and the angels are in paradise, driving in their limousine, where everything is nice and clean. A poor man living in a tinny-winny hut, the children hungry, nothing in the pot. He gone by the neighbor to beg for some rice. The neighbor under pressure, boy, things ain't nice. He gone in the big shot area to beg. A police put a bullet in his tinny-winny leg. He gone in the courts and he lost the case. The prosecutor say he have a
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because he was able to incorporate, in modernizing the music, in modernizing Calypso music. He was able to capture the, the youth generation from time to time, from period to period. He was able to capture the youth generation because he maintained, as you say.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of folks talk about the whole soca song, but I always say that Shadow never touched that soca thing. Because I mean, in his own words, he was looking for a high level of calypso, a kind of higher version of calypso, and I think that will be accomplished.
Definitely.
But that becomes the song that the music needed. As we just say, the check at present, over 25 years, you hear Shadow all over the place in the music.
Yeah, and in different eras that he had he continued that revolutionary trend, like and there was an added explosion.
Correct.
Of his music, like when he came out with the Peter album, and then when he came out with the Road March in 2002, Stranger, then you hear the distinct thing again, the drums.
Yeah, because I mean, as I just look at it, he showed he was always a trendsetter. Okay, I mean, how much calypso within the 5 decades they exist? Hits like Shadow in every
Where setting the trends, setting trends all the time.
And yeah, I mean, each decade you'll have producers changing, arrangers changing, studios changing, the style of studios changing, because remember the bassman in the 70s you had the analog style recording, and then in the 2000s it become the digital style recording. And I don't think it's up to the calypso who he would have started off with that was still doing that kind of music up at that time.
No. He is what I mean, guys like that. You see the thing with him, Shadow, and we're expressing this. It's genius, and genius sometimes come every 1,000 years, every 100 years, every 500 years. So you're expressing the genius of the man.
Correct. And I think that's what makes him that such an influential artist, because when I talk to people in my age group or my peers, they would all of them like the same thing. Musically, the energy, and next thing we touch on is the master economy of words.
Yeah, well said,
in 2 lines when somebody tell you he was a song, I was planning to forget Calypso, but plan pieces of the song not there. Everything else was just on you.
We're explaining this is his genius as a composer, a master composer.
Correct.
You know, I tell you when I was going down the road, I went down there and I meet a man girl, come back there. 2 words to tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think though in the modern time, even though a lot of folks try to achieve a sound, I think that's the aspect they never really touch on is as the composing style.
Yeah.
But I mean, the sound, and when we go back and we go see all the present and sound. When they are drum, the chair, a bassline here. I mean, in some cases, I can remember there was this rhythm where the scales he was on, where they use the elements of soca board. You also hear the elements of soca board in the Shadow compose measurement of the song, what they say, And I mean, I always tell people, give people challenge, point out any other calypso as original, as influential. Is that standard?
Yeah, and when you look, his influence has something to do with the power of the repertoire. The repertoire of his music. From then to now, how many other Calypsonians have that kind of repertoire of music? I went to a concert with a big time Calypsonian, and from the time he sing early songs that he made, when he coming down, everything falls flat. But Shadow now, you see now from time to time, he maintained that high level of excellence.
And you did touch on something early on where you were speaking about even, because he was against the norm, when in the time he started, we would be everybody clean face, and their shoes shining, and their hair slick back, and the colors. This man come with a beard, he wearing black, and everything that society
they used to stick the hair,
Yeah, that's the standard.
Yeah.
But I mean, For somebody to be that influential, yes, right, you have to be a little more solid and confident in self, and I think that's what Shadow had now.
You radically.
That confidence was the beard, and that confidence was the black, and that confidence was being afraid to be associated with the word over or dark. Or you understand, which was the whole movement of the 70s, within that whole black awareness, the black power movement. I think some way his music and all even tied into that.
Definitely, the music captured the time, the essence of the time, you know, that era of black consciousness, of awareness, Shadow music, and his lyrics captured that.
Correct.
And the thing with him is that one of the influences that Shadow never really went down into the gutter in terms of composition, you know, like being obscene to people and that kind of thing.
Correct.
All, you know, like songs like One Love and so on, those are gems and that have a sense of eternity about it. And those songs will have an influence on future composers.
No, but and he's also one of the most biographical writers too, because I mean, when people know plenty of them stuff that he's saying is from the life experiences of his own. I mean, I know a particular story about the Kokoro thing. You know? I mean, even Gossipin, the opening lines of Gossipin, we changing names.
Winston.
But they Winston as a child there. You know, and I think it's amazing that an artist could take, and that's what true artists is, when they could take your life and entertain people with it, you know. And it's actor's therapy to you, but at the same time, you can pass by a place to somebody who you say, and I show the power. And because of that power, and the ability to stay relevant. The ability to stay relevant for so much decades, you know, you have, as an artist, you have to recognize that. I mean, I can point out a lot of people in modern day Calypsonians, like a friend of mine, Mr. Shaq, influenced by Shadow, you know, and though he mightn't try to capture the Shadow song, but the ideology, the principles, you know, he manifests that too. And that is from the years I work, as I just say, from the catalog of music that he keeps presenting every year, being consistent, you know. Because once you make the argument, you have about 300 and something songs written, you know, but when they already analyze from 1970 straight down to 2000, this guy just keep producing records after records. Each of these records like about 8 songs a piece. You didn't do the maths. Like that body of work.
Yeah, and is that work that he has done that remains one of his greatest legacy. And you know, there must be something done in order to ensure that he continue to be that kind of influential personality in music. Because you made a very perceptive point when you spoke about using your life stories to create something, to create like music and so on. I think that is a very deep statement you make.
Yeah, when we say international artists that we just draw to, that is the place they draw from. And I think that's the signal that Shadow showed, that to show that even more than Calypso.
Yeah, Shadow is a world-class artist who could match any artist anywhere, because I could remember the first, we're talking about influence. I remember when we had the jazz festival at Plymouth and they brought down the Ivy Brothers and all of them. So I think Farrell was there too. And Shadow hit that stage. That whole audience, about 3 minutes after Shadow leaves the stage, they still shouting out Shadow, 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 Shadow. The mesmerizing presence of him as an artist on stage too will help to influence other artists to adopt some of his style, you know, because sometimes you go on stage and you hold his hand, you know, and just stand up straight and sing a song and mash up the whole place, you know.
Yeah, he has carried charisma in his pocket.
Charisma in his pocket.
Charisma in his pocket. But you know what, a big thing we miss out now, we look at all the influence and things, what thing we miss out? Man is not here no more, and we are still seeing his presence in everybody's music, in everybody's face, you know. I get it. I like it.
Yeah, that is stuff geniuses are made up, you know. Because like Martin Luther back in the 1960s read about nearly 1 million people in a march to Washington demanding equal rights for Africans in America, African Americans. And he gave this speech, I Have a Dream. And that speech remains today, right? The speeches made by men like Malcolm X and so on, they would remain. It's just as the legacy of Christ, who was 2,000 years ago. The word of Christ still stands predominant today.
Correct.
And in relation to great artists like Shadow, some of the works will have that sense of longevity and be influential to the younger ones coming up.
And important to influence the younger ones coming up with that kind of standard.
This is what must be done. What must be done at present is to ensure that the great work of this great genius is appreciated by the nation, the region, and the international. But in order for that to happen, we here must start that work of getting this work out to the people. So here is where the mass media and now we have social media coming into play. Because you was telling me, Sharlan, that you got an audio of Shadow in 1974 in the Savannah. Yeah, I remember watching that on black and white TV. You know, them kind of performances are once in a lifetime.
So you say the problem is archiving.
You archiving. Well, right here, going down close to it. Well, archiving.
Archiving, we need to talk about it more. Yeah. Correct.
So that the influence, the positive influence.
You check us in the past to know where to go.
Well, it was an ultimate pleasure of mine to be here with the esteemed company of Brother Sharlan Bailey, a man whose father I have known and we have worked with since 1975. I worked with the Shadow when I brought him to Drago to do his first show on a Good Friday night at PSA way back in 1975. And to see that he has produced a son of such quality, musical quality, and such a beautiful human being, as I said again, it is a pleasure that I will cherish with that sense of eternity. Brother Sharlan,
after all of the giveaways, and Mama gave me a few to blush on the mask, I never
put a black dangerous country.
That's what I mean. As always, I mean, you have some stories you can share with me because I as your partner. And I'm glad that we're doing this because it's very important because I mean, a lot of people snatching, grabbing, sampling the work. But I don't think people understand the work put in by Mr. Bailey to praise in the first place, you know, and it's a nice opportunity to really show what he stands for, which is music and musicianship, you know, and he's also a testimony to hold on to your dreams, you know. I'm glad that we can share this space together because I know you have plenty you could share.
Yeah, it's so nice, man. And we have to end by saying, one love. In honor of the great man.
We'll stand up.